a national tribute honoring India's constitution. But to the north, in Indian-administered Kashmir, where a ground-to-air security operation is underway, Republic Day has another name, Black Day, in the only state in India that's predominantly Muslim, and where many consider their land occupied. The decades-old conflict heated up again last summer after Indian security forces killed separatist rebel leader Burhan Wadi. His death sparked a series of street protests calling for independence, which were met with a crackdown by Indian security forces. India, which accuses Pakistan of supporting separatist groups, says it launched a strike along the line of control against rebel targets in retribution for an attack in September, in which 19 Indian soldiers were killed. Pakistan disputes the strike, but skirmishes and rising tensions on the border between the two nuclear-armed countries have caused alarm in the region and across the world. Pakistan has increasingly called on India to administer an independence referendum in its province. And Amnesty International has accused Indian security forces of abusing sweeping powers to search, arrest, or shoot people given to them under the Armed Forces Special Powers Act. But Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi has said he's not willing to compromise on national security and has placed the blame squarely on Pakistan.
India alone cannot walk the path of peace. It also has to be Pakistan's journey to make.
The Kashmir issue has been a rallying point for hardliners who support Modi's crackdown on dissent.
These 4 photos of Donald Trump, Vladimir Putin, Narendra Modi, and Israel's Benjamin Netanyahu, as a group, through which we want to send a message that there is a rise of right-wing leaders in the world, and Islamic extremists should either disappear or this group will finish them.
While India's Republic Day is meant to celebrate unity and diversity, in Kashmir, many are united by the desire to be governed by a republic of their own. Randolph Nogel, The Newsmakers.
Well, joining me now from New Delhi is Nalin Kohli. He's the spokesman for the ruling Bharatiya Janata Party. And from Srinagar in Indian-administered Kashmir is Shujat Bukhari, editor-in-chief of the newspaper Rising Kashmir. Thanks, both of you, for joining us. Shujat, let me ask you, is Republic Day a day of celebration for all Indians?
Yes, certainly. Republic Day is actually a day of celebration for the entire India because India became democratic on 26th of January 1950. But as far as Kashmir is concerned, for the last more than 26 years, this day is not being celebrated on the scale that it is being celebrated in the rest of India because of the fact that people here have been calling for the resolution of Kashmir dispute, and they believe that they have been cheated right from 1947. Their promises have not been fulfilled, which were made to them from time to time. And not only that, but whatever autonomy the state of Jammu and Kashmir had got under the Indian constitution was clandestinely eroded from time to time, and people were thrust from Delhi on people of Kashmir. And when in 1987, people reposed faith in the Indian democracy, the elections were rigged at large scale, and that actually became a turning point in the history of Jammu and Kashmir.
Shujat, I don't want to go through the whole timeline, but what is clear is that the situation is tense in Jammu and Kashmir and different to much of the rest of the country on this auspicious day. Let me pose that to Nalin. You're a spokesman for the ruling party. Does that take the gloss away from the celebrations across the country that Kashmir is so tense and so unresolved?
No, I don't think it's only about Jammu and Kashmir. As you know, the state of Jammu and Kashmir has 3 parts to it. It has the part of Jammu, it has the part of Kashmir Valley, and it has the part of Ladakh. So broadly, you would see a lot of happiness there. In Jammu, in the state, by a particular valley part of Kashmir, our viewpoint is that it's really been vitiated because of the cross-border terrorism that comes from Pakistan, and backed by trying to create some kind of an Islamist ideology behind it. And that has resulted in a lot of bloodshed, and therefore it has called for the necessity or necessitated the presence, a larger presence of security forces and the armed forces. So I think if you look at even in elections, there has been, the last election itself has been seen as a very good example of a free and fair election. So yes, there are problems. There's no doubt about it, because everyone aspires to be in complete peace. We all do, and
sure,
that does not
sorry to
exclude
interrupt you.
others. In
Sure.
the state,
You mentioned the
Jammu and
elections. The last election had lower voter turnout than ever before. Do you have any sympathy for those Kashmiris? Let's take the militants and put them aside.
I think you've got the figure wrong. The last election had among the highest voter turnouts. You might want...
I'm just looking at a piece in the Diplomat that's quoting that. Okay, so I stand to be corrected if I've got that wrong. I've got a piece in the Diplomat that's got that. However, do you have any sympathy for those Kashmiris, taking the militants, putting them aside, those Kashmiris who are innocent Kashmiris who want to protest against the lockdowns and the curfews and so on? Do you have any sympathy for them calling this a black day and not Republic Day?
Look, there's not a question of sympathy. Every Indian, and that includes every Indian, including those who reside in Jammu and Kashmir, and particularly in the Kashmir Valley, is entitled to aspire for peace. And if there is a protest in a peaceful manner, that's the strength of the Indian Constitution. Please bear in mind that the Indian Constitution is a document of shared values. It's not about identity, but shared values. And that's what brings so many diverse people together. So therefore, aspirations have to be part of that. So if there's a protest also, that is also under the Constitution permitted. One can express their view, but everything is within a certain framework. You can't propagate violence. If you take law and order in your own hands, then obviously then the state mechanism, the other security mechanisms are forced to step in. Okay. That's not a question by choice or preference.
Sure, let's get a response from Shujat then. Shujat, this Indian Constitution is a document of shared values that applies to people who live in Jammu and Kashmir as well. What do you think?
No, I don't think so. That's what I said at the outset, that Indian constitution has failed in the sense right from 1947. That's what I say, that the promises which had been made to the people of Jammu and Kashmir were not fulfilled, and that should have been the spirit of the democracy and spirit of constitution. And as far as the protests are concerned and other things are concerned, you have seen that in 2016, Kashmir was locked down for 5 months. I mean, for 50 days, you had to put curfew and you had to put 7 million people in a lockdown. So, I mean, there's a political problem on the ground. It's not all what we say that is sponsored by Pakistan, aided and abetted by them. Yes, Pakistan is party to it, but entire Kashmir is actually has been on streets. I mean, they have their political aspirations. I mean, they have not been fulfilled. I mean, they are not even being, that's not being recognized on the ground. I mean, there's no acknowledgement that there's a political problem. I mean, look at Kashmir, it's the highest militarized zone today. So if, I mean, even in spite of having so much of the military, so much of paramilitary forces, I mean, people are not celebrating the Republic Day. I mean, what does that mean here? I mean, that's a very important question. Let us not actually just brush it aside as something which has come from Pakistan directly. I mean, I said that, I mean, there is a Pakistani angle, there's no doubt about it, but the question is that largely, whatever people have been saying for the last so many years, essentially in 2010, in 2016, I think there's a big political statement. My worry is that with the passage of time, the people have been rallying behind the militants again. The path they had actually, I mean, left in after mid-90s, and they wanted to give peace a chance, and there was transition from violence to non-violence. But unfortunately, that was not capitalized, and there was no dialogue going on.
Okay, we are running out of time. Nalin, I want to pose to you something that was said by the Opposition Congress President Sonia Gandhi. She said the intrinsic strength of the Indian Republic lies in our constitutional values, and she asked the people to, quote, fight forces which seek to undermine them. This, in my reading, is clearly a dig, a poke at the BJP. She's implying that you're not living up to the Constitution.
No, there's nothing to be implied.
Is that fair?
It's absolutely directly a poke. Yes, of course, it's a poke at the BJP. And of course, and that poke, 3 fingers, when you point your finger one way, you have 3 pointing yourself. So if at all there are any problems in the country, the Congress has gloriously misruled this country for 55 years out of the 70 years. So even if you're looking at the problems in Jammu and Kashmir, you need to acknowledge that it has taken Prime Minister Jawaharlal Nehru right up to Prime Minister Manmohan Singh, 55 years of that, to bring about those problems. So I think that's a very good comment. Those divisive forces lie probably in her party. She would do well to identify them, rather than constantly looking outside. That's the standard phenomena across the world through history, from Bismarck right up to Pakistan, that find a fault outside your own faults. If you recognize faults, you'll find solutions.
Okay, Nalin Kohli and Shujat Bukhari. I wish we had more
Thank
time,
you.
but we don't. Thank you very much for joining us.